welcome back, Pronghorn Nation, to another edition of Coach's Corner. Chase the Horseman Horsley here, alongside with Coach Liz Lewis and Coach. Obviously, 19-7, 6-2 with a nice conference record going in. But first off, let's talk about this weekend. Talk about some of these games. Eastern Wyoming, you had that one. That was a pretty good win on that side.
Yeah, it was good. And Eastern's a tough team. They are. They're tough and they're really tough at home. So we got to be ready to go. And playing back-to-back games, I'm not a big fan of it at all. Playing Friday night and then Saturday, it's a quick
Hmm.
turnaround. It's a quick turnaround for games, but we got to be ready to go. And yeah, we got two tough opponents this weekend.
Yeah, no, and we also go back into Casper College on Saturday,
Mm.
and that one was it just kind of felt like the momentum kind of shifted throughout that whole game because one, you guys had like you guys were just knocking it out of the park, and then all of a sudden it just kind of went down in the
Yeah.
fourth.
Yeah, and I think and those kind of games are really good games because they give you an opportunity to learn, and that's the most important thing is having those types of games this time of year. And we know Casper's always going to be a tough opponent. I mean,
Hmm.
that's just the way it is. And so I thought we did really well for about 35 minutes, and then we just got tight there at the end. And Casper had some big players make some big plays, and ended up coming out on top. And so I do think though that there was a lot of lessons learned. We got to handle adversity, and adversity is going to be thrown at us different ways. It could be the guys in stripes, it could be the other team, and so no matter what the adversity is, we got to do a better job learning to handle it.
Yeah, and definitely trying to figure ways to handle it. And obviously, it was Western Nebraska, not Eastern Nebraska. And I said
Yeah.
Eastern,
Mhm.
but and give the flowers where Westerns do, because we talked about having being one of those top seeds in the Region 9, and it was going to be a tough, but obviously getting the big one, and a lot of it was due to the rebounding category. You guys got about 15 plus rebounds, more than what Western Wyoming was. How did that end up going for you
Yeah, in
guys?
Western Wyoming, I mean, if they get hot, they're hot. Like they can shoot the heck out of the ball. And that's the thing is they got so many great perimeter players that can shoot it well. And so we focused really hard on getting out on shooters, but then also being able to rebound those long shots. And so I thought our rebounders did a great job, and everyone contributed. That's something we've kind of been on the team about lately. Is our guards have got to contribute in the rebounding category. Guards have to get in there, and we can't just depend on Dasani on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't you have to work as a team,
Yes,
especially this late in the season.
yes.
4 road stands that are coming up, which we'll get into that here in a moment as well. But turnover margins, we're gonna start with right now with Western Wyoming. Obviously, you
Mm.
guys forced 19 turnovers. Pretty solid day,
Yep.
getting things done. And then we look at Casper, and then it went the other way
The other
on
way,
that
yes, we
side.
had a lot of turnovers against Casper. We did. We didn't take care of the ball very well. And that's something that again it's good to learn, it's good to experience, and so that
Mhm.
we can continue to get better in those areas for sure.
Obviously, we talked afterwards, and you were talking with Thomas at the end of the game, and that last play with Dasani making that quick tip in,
Mhm.
getting things back wild up, and then everyone cleared the bench right there at the buzzer. But then you guys get a bench warning, and then now they're having to sit on the bench the whole entire
Yes, and
time.
that was a little bit of confusion there for sure because I can't find anywhere in the rule book where that's a rule. And I think it was a heck of a play.
Yeah, it
Dasani
was really
made
good.
Dasani made an unbelievable play, and there was a lot of excitement and things like that. And so we did get a bench warning, but why it went extreme to the point where we couldn't stand up anymore and cheer for our teammates, I don't know why it went so extreme with just one
Hmm.
warning. But again, that's something that we have to, like I said, we got to work through all the adversity that's going to be thrown our way. And all year long, we talk about keeping our bench involved and our players involved, whether you play 40 minutes a game, 2 minutes a game, it doesn't matter. You're still involved and still contributing. And so it was just kind of an experience that we hadn't had yet this year. And we didn't respond as well as I'd liked, but we will continue to work towards responding better to those kind of things that are thrown our way.
Moving forward, obviously you said trying to respond better to those situations. What do you think something differently as like a coach you maybe could do maybe to help them? Obviously, you're trying to coach a basketball game, but you see your team on, kind of not into it as much anymore. What are some things that you can do differently to
Well, and the
get them up?
energy, like you said, the energy just dropped for us in the fourth quarter. We only scored 10 points. Like it was just one of those quarters where we just didn't perform well and didn't finish out the game. And so a lot of times, like when you're in the game, there's not a lot to adjust, but going back and analyzing, which is why we have these games, is so that when we hit tournament time, things can be a little bit different, and hopefully we can respond differently. But it's tough mid game because I was surprised by the ruling because I didn't
Yeah.
quite. know what to do with it. But it definitely did suck the energy out of us, and so we've got to do a better job of continuing to feed into each other, and having that energy. Like I said, no matter what adversity we face.
Yeah, you mentioned 10 points. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
add you 10. It was 20, but
we scored 20 in the
yeah,
second,
you
in the fourth
in
quarter.
the fourth quarter you scored
Oh,
20. It was
well,
11
like
points in
10.
the third.
Oh, maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, but
No,
it did feel that kind of in that
like 10.
second half, it was kind of getting a little rough because, at one point, you guys were up to a nice sizable lead right there, and you guys were
Oh,
ready to go.
these are the stats
This
against
this is a fun
Casper.
stat.
Okay, I was
We're
gonna
gonna throw
say,
that
dang,
one away.
I was like,
You're right, it was 10,
yeah,
but
we had a
yeah,
heck of a third quarter. We did
yeah,
really well in the third quarter, but then the fourth quarter, yeah,
yeah, there
we
you go.
only scored 10 points. I was
Just
like,
gonna throw those stats to
that's
the
all
ground,
right.
so
That's
it's
right.
fine.
You had me all kinds of confused, but that's all right.
Well, when I was pulling everything up, I popped the right guy, and then
Uh-huh.
it just technology, sometimes
Yeah, we
just
love it.
is a
Yeah,
pain,
we love it. Yeah.
it works. But anyways, from that point on,
Yeah,
but obviously you guys had that lead.
we
I
did.
mean,
Yeah,
you
we did.
had the lead, everything was going great, and then obviously Luna started going off.
Yeah, she's a good player. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching her, and then the other thing was difference. The amounts of people that were not from the United States
Yeah.
on Casper's roster.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, they have a lot of international players. They do. They have a lot of international players.
That was just
Mhm.
crazy to me. I
Yeah.
was, like, seeing it. I got here late because I was doing the high school games, and Thomas was like, "Yeah," going over all these names. So I was just like, "Yeah, you take it the rest of the way. You
Yeah.
got this."
Yeah.
But what's the difference from seeing, maybe is there a difference between sometimes international play to, um, American play sometimes, do you think?
I think there's a little bit of a difference there. And I think everyone has their preference on players and things like that. But that coach does an excellent job getting those girls to come together and play well together, even though they're all from different countries. And so it's interesting to see, but he does an excellent job putting them together and getting them to play well. And they continue to get better every single game.
Yeah, and it was so cool to watch because it was just like, I haven't seen that.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
really? Yeah.
yeah, I was just like, normally, there's people from Utah, Wyoming, Colorado, some people like that, and then all of a sudden there's like one person
Hmm.
from the United States on there, and I was just like, that's kind of cool, but it also kind of feels like that might be a pain to guard as well too, because a lot of times internationally they play a different style
They do play a
out
different
there,
style. Yeah.
and so kind of makes it a little bit harder, but
Mhm.
moving a little bit into some of these road games that you have coming up. You have Laramie County Community College. So you guys got the win the last time.
Yeah.
Obviously, this time they're wanting revenge. They want the revenge. They have their shooters. They're probably ready to go. It's sophomore night as well too. How do you take the crowd out?
Yeah, that's what's kind of fun about the last part of our season is we're going to hit everybody's sophomore nights, and
Hmm.
any external motivation, it helps every team out a little bit. And but to take their crowd out of it and everything like that, I tell the girls, anytime you walk into anybody else's gym, you're down 15-0 just by being in their gym.
Yeah.
And so you got to understand that you got to outplay them by at least that much. So we got to take what we've learned from our previous games, playing on the road, the challenges we faced, the adversity we faced. We got to take those things and put them into these games and show what we've learned along the way. And so no matter what the external factors are or anything like that, we got to stay together, play for each other, and focus and stay involved in just our team. And so I think those things are important.
We've talked about it being on the road.
Mhm.
Obviously, the end of the season you're on the road, postseason you're on the road.
Yeah,
There's no more home games.
no more. No.
No more home games. So obviously the adversity, taking the crowd out is gonna have to be on something
Mhm.
every single time because one, you go to neutral sites, but then it's also road games throughout the rest. So
Mhm.
how do you keep your players involved thinking, okay, obviously it's not a home crowd, but how do you keep the mindset that, what, we're gonna take this crowd and we're gonna make this our home
Mhm.
crowd?
Yeah, and that's the thing is we talk even from the beginning, from the very first game of the year, is whether you're playing in an empty gym, whether it's a packed gym, whether it's your gym or somebody else's house, like you have to bring your own energy as a team. You got to
Mm,
bring your own energy as a team and stick with each other because if you're in a somebody else's gym and it's a they got the student section going and things like that, like you really just got to focus on your team and what you're doing because if you start to hear those things and get involved in that, then you lose focus on what you're doing.
absolutely. Well, we're gonna switch gears because we're gonna talk to Rochelle here in a few moments, but talk about her play style. How do you think she's been doing throughout the year so far?
Rochelle is a really special player. She is. She's so versatile. She can do so many things with her position as a power forward. I mean, she can score down low. She can score, and she's got one of the best mid ranges in the league, I believe. It's very, and which is very hard to find in the women's game,
Oh,
is that
100%.
mid range. And so I think that's what makes her so special is she can hit that mid range. She can hit the three, like she can score at all three levels. But she can also, she's strong and can rebound the ball really well. And her shooting percentage is unreal. Like
Yeah.
we got to get her more touches and more looks and things like that. And we've been working on a few options this week because she knows how to play. And what's really nice about her too is she plays at her speed. Like
Hmm.
the defense isn't going to speed her up. Like she plays at her speed and does what she's really good at. But she's also a great teammate, and that's something again that you don't quite see on the stat sheet and
No.
stuff. She's also a really good teammate. The girls really like her, and she's a good leader out there, and she always has a level head, which is something that we need moving forward for sure.
Yeah, and level heads are definitely something you need for postseason,
Yes, for
especially
sure.
because you have the motion all the way up here,
Yep,
but then you got to bring it right back down to make sure that you guys don't get fouls, technicals, all the other stuff.
100%. Yep.
Well, we're going to talk with Rochelle coming up here after this break from Chase the Horseman Horsley to Coach Liz Lewis. We're going to be back here in a few moments. We have Rochelle off of Manuma coming up after this. Welcome back to Coach's Corner. Back here with Chase the Horseman Horsley. Alongside me is Rochelle Afumanuma. And first off, Rochelle, I'm going to say it took me a few times to make sure I got your last name
Oh,
pronounced a little bit right on the broadcast. Just going to be honest, but hey, thank you so much for coming in and
yeah. Thanks
joining
for
with
having
us.
me.
Absolutely. Well, Rochelle, obviously not getting the uh, win that you guys wanted to against Casper on Saturday, but what did you see from your team play throughout that game?
Um, that game was really a learning lesson for our team. I feel like we had spurts and moments where we did really good. Like we had quarters where we held them to single digits or close to single digits, but then there were other moments where we just let them get on a run and we kind of had a dry spell. But it was definitely a learning lesson, especially towards the end, that we just have to be tougher and play the whole game so we can get the result that we want.
You know, and speaking of playing tougher, I mean, you guys were outscoring Casper pretty much the whole game. And then all of a sudden, after the tip in, everything kind of changed. And mostly that was because you guys were told you had to sit down. You couldn't really
Yeah.
stand up anymore.
I think we kind of let the refs' decision and their call kind of change the game for us, which is like obviously we didn't like that call and it changed the momentum for us, but we also want to learn how to control that and not leave it up to them. We
Mhm.
want to control the end result of the game.
You know, a lot of times this is where teams figure out what they're good at and what they really need to focus on. Obviously, you guys have a 4-game road stand coming up and starting tomorrow as well too. What do you guys need to do to change how you guys played against Casper in that fourth quarter? Not necessarily for the first three, because those were,
Yeah.
out rebounding and doing what you guys need to do. But what do you guys need to do differently upcoming?
I think just being mentally like stronger, but also like we've been talking about our control circle a lot and just focusing on what we can control. Sorry, my bad. What we can control and not letting outside factors affect that, so that we can play our game and get these dubs on the road.
Yeah, and playing your game is just what you guys like to do. And obviously, right now, looks like if everything stays where it's at, looks like you guys are going to be going to Western Nebraska,
Yeah.
back in Scottsbluff. And obviously, there's a lot more games to
Hmm.
deal with right now. There's 4 games that are going to be on the road. You have a game against Laramie County Community College, which you guys won the first time,
Yeah.
but you also saw spurts that you guys were able to knock them down defensively in the 3-point game and things. What can you guys do to stay in that contribution for this upcoming game?
I think just remembering how we played them the first time and come out with that same energy, especially since we're gonna be at their home court and it's gonna be their sophomore night. Just understanding all those things and like remembering our scout to help us.
What Going back to that Laramie County Community game, obviously there's a big 3-point shooter
Yeah.
that, shoots about 51%, but she barely took any 3-pointers. And when I was talking with a coach of Laramie County Community and talking with one of their broadcasters, they were actually kind of mad at her because she wasn't taking up
Yeah.
those shots. Obviously, you guys did a good job defensively inside, which is why she couldn't
Yeah.
get a lot of those open shots as well too. So what would be some of the main focus, not just mainly on her, but mainly on like the team wise? So like what's the team morale going on right now, especially going back into a game that you guys already know you guys can win,
Yeah.
but obviously it's on the road this time, so you have to figure out how to do it again.
Um, I think it's just in our preparation and practice. We've been preparing. We're preparing for this game, and we have this mindset as we're on the road. We're like, it's away game, so we're already down zero
Hmm.
15 when the clock starts. So it's just like not underestimating the other team, and because it's going to be a tougher matchup, and their whole team as a whole is a very high volume 3-point shooting team. Not just her, but I think just running them off the line and playing solid defense.
You've been the team's leading scorer pretty much all season long. You've just been rocking it through. What has been one of the biggest keys to your offensive success?
I think just trusting that whatever I do on the offensive side of the game, my teammates will be there to support me in whatever I do. I think that's a big part of it. And also like the work that goes into before the game and
Hmm.
preparing before the game, not just waiting around for it to happen.
When a lot of times players just kind of like, kind of take control of a game. Do you feel kind of like you've started sometimes doing that, especially with how many points you've been putting up, or has it been something that you kind of just been like, well, it's open, so I'm just gonna take it.
I think I've definitely had my moments where I feel like, oh, I'm gonna take control, but I think it's something I still need to work on and improve in that areas.
Yeah, hey, it's always something like in the leadership wise, and how do you keep setting the tone, obviously, for your teammates in a leadership standpoint? Obviously, you guys want to keep pushing and doing what you guys need to do. Sophomore night was on Saturday, but now it's reslate again. How do you keep the leadership momentum going for you guys?
I think just showing up every day and like I think the best leaders lead through example, not just through their words. And so just showing my teammates that hey, I'm here too. I'm ready to get back to work. And I understand it was a tough loss, but we have other things to do.
Besides you, who do you think would be like that next in line leadership spot?
Probably Dasani or Arna. They're really big leaders on our team for us and help keep us together.
Yeah. Hey, and Arna, we talked with her last week, and she brought up a lot of times with about you and about Dasani as well too in the leadership. So I guess it fits hand
Yeah,
in hand
yeah,
with
yeah.
it. So really cool. But obviously, we talked about defense struggles in the fourth quarter against Casper. Those defensive struggles kind of led to 20 turnovers
Yeah.
and those issues. But how do you guys handle that defensive pressure going forward?
Um, in practice, we've been just trying to make each other tougher. Like we've been fouling each other in practice, but just to prepare each other for like, cause now we're like, we know we might not get some calls, so we just have to work through our adversity and just keep going no matter what. So I think that's a big part of it.
I want to go look at the whole picture throughout the season. Obviously, you guys are 19-6 or 19-7 on the season, but what has been probably maybe the hardest defensive matchup that you've seen so far that maybe was just like, oh man, that was super challenging, but we got it done, or oh man, that was super challenging, but we didn't get it done? What would you say that might be?
I think, like, honestly, when we probably played Western, just for me, I don't know how my teammates felt, but I feel like Western came out and they're just kind of all over us. And especially my matchup, I can't remember a number, but I was kind of expecting someone bigger, but I
Hmm.
got matched up with someone quicker, a little more tough. So I thought that was a little hard the first time coming around. So the second time they came around, I was just keeping that in mind and mentally preparing for it differently.
You talk about mentally preparing. Obviously, postseason, we've talked about it coming up here very soon. What is the mindset to keep focused, to keep saying, hey, this is one game at a time?
Hmm.
Don't focus on, hey, we keep winning out. We're going to be like the 1-2 seed, get a bye. What's the focus? How do you fix that?
I think just taking it one day at a time, not trying to take it too far ahead. Just remembering that everything you do matters and how you do it matters as well.
Well, just Rochelle, we're going to get you one more question in here, and it's kind of about the Sunny Nesbitt's play
Okay.
and how she's been able to figure things out on the defensive side of the board. Obviously, you're the leading scorer; you've been figuring things out on that side, but on the defensive side, she's been able to get a lot of those rebounds. And we've said at the very beginning of the year that you two all being on the front court, and don't get the ego too high, but being
Yeah.
probably one of the best in Region 9 basketball with the front court that Gillette has right now. So what do you think has led to the rebounding, the assists, the everything that's all kind of combined together with Dasani's play, your play, and even throwing Arna as well too?
I think just battling against each other every day at practice, because honestly, in practice, me and Dasani are never on the same team. So we just get to go at each other. And I think that's that kind of like iron sharpens iron kind of thing. And we just make each other better for it in the game. So then we click better.
Dang. Clicking better indeed, and you guys are 19-7 and have a nice little road stand.
Yeah.
Good luck this week.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. We're going to get you back with Coach's Corner. We're going to get back with Coach Liz Lewis coming up here in a few moments. This is Coach's Corner here with Rochelle off of Manuma and Chase the Horseman Horsley. We'll be back. And welcome back here with our Coach's Corner, Chase the Horseman Horsley with Coach Liz Lewis. And Coach, we just talked with Rochelle off of Manuma. And one of the things that we talked about was leadership. And she, same thing what Arna talked about last week was three main people have always been those top leaders, Rochelle, Dasani, and Arna, just leading the team. What have you seen from them?
From them, I've seen what's really nice about both Arna and Rochelle is they're both very level-headed. They're both, and we did a drill just the other day in practice, and it was nice to see how I put them on opposite teams, but they were both able to, get their teams doing what they need to and still competing and staying level-headed and things like that. Like they both really are. And Dasani's just a hype man, like she is. She's such a spark. She's such a spark out there on the floor. She makes plays, really tough plays, and like she just is so good at getting her teammates involved and getting them all hyped up and everything too.
Right.
So we have a really good balance as far as our player leadership goes, and it's really fun to see.
Yeah, and it's been awesome seeing, especially because I'm sitting so far up in the air, and so I can see everything that's going in the action. And team's crazy, team over here is just like sitting down, and then the energy level, it's like a complete different shift. And as we talk about, your team thrives on energy and going forward and trying to push things and get things done. Obviously, energy kind of fell off just a little bit in the fourth quarter against Casper, but now it gets to come back. All the energy's there. Rochelle seemed she's like ready to go, get back up as well too. And you guys have a shoot around or actual practice coming up here in a little bit. But what are some of the things, without giving all the things away so people can't see to fix it real soon, but what are the things today that you guys may try to work on so that way you can get better at for this road test?
A big thing we want to work on today is our defense. Our defense and the consistency of it. And so LCCC can shoot the ball really well, but so can Eastern. They're both very good teams offensively and defensively, and so it's going to be tough battles against both of them. So we really want to come out and play and lay it on them defensively. But LCCC's got so many offensive threats that it's tough. But as long as we play team defense and play together and communicate, I think we'll be okay. But we're gonna have to really come out and play. And like you said, the energy, like we're gonna have to bring energy in somebody else's gym.
We talk about records every single time. The records that are put on somebody's sheet does not mean anything.
No, it doesn't.
Especially when it's sophomore night.
Especially when it's sophomore night. Yeah.
Sophomore night is probably, it's like senior night, but JUCO sophomore night for those that are kind of confused. But only 2-year college for JUCO. But you go back and you have to figure out how to take them out of the crowd. You have to take the sophomores out of the crowd. Obviously, they're going to want to have their best game possible, take you guys down, make it to where you guys have to keep fighting back and forth. What do you think is going to be the most difficult test throughout this weekend?
Oh, the most difficult test. I think the most difficult test and something I think we've kind of struggled with all year, that I'm hoping we've learned and that we definitely need to learn by tournament time is once we go on a run and have a team down, we've got to keep going. Yeah. I feel like there's too many times that we get a little complacent and we're just okay with the 10-point lead or whatever it is and don't quite understand that 10 points in college basketball is nothing. Like 20 points.
No, not.
20 points in college basketball is nothing. And so understanding that like every play, every possession, we have to continue to keep the foot on the throttle. And I think that's a lesson that we need to learn because there's times where I feel like we don't do that. And so we've had, and I think the big difference is we never, like last year, we never really had the opportunity to learn that. And so we're learning it for the first time this year. And so I think it's something that we've got to get better at is understanding once we get that lead and go on that run, it has to continue and that we can't get complacent.
Yeah. And then getting complacent is definitely hard in postseason.
Yeah.
Especially because you're like, okay, hey, we're doing something really good. We're focusing, we're getting the wins, doing what we need to, but feels like sometimes we're just like, stay.
Yes. Yes.
So
And comfort's a killer. And so
yeah,
that's what we can't, we gotta understand, like, you can't get comfortable. And like I said, something we've talked about all year, and we've had multiple opportunities to learn it. Because even look at down at Western Wyoming, when we were at Western Wyoming, we had a 15-point lead in the fourth quarter, and Western Wyoming came back, and we were able to get away with a 6-point win. Like,
hmm
they outscored us in the fourth quarter, and same thing happened against Casper on Saturday. Like, it's a lesson that, like I said, we've had opportunities to learn, and I'm hoping that we've learned it so that we can understand that, and like I said, you got to keep that foot on the throttle, especially in the postseason.
yeah. And what is or how can you guys keep that foot on the throttle? Obviously, saying making sure the tempo stays where it needs to be, energy. But what are things as a coach you're seeing to kind of like make sure like, hey, go.
Hmm.
This is what we need to do.
Yeah,
How can we
really
keep that going?
look towards those three that we talked about, is Dasani, Rochelle, and Arna. Look towards those three to understand that, hey, we got to keep running in transition. We got to keep the, defensively, we got to keep the energy up, and
Mhm.
and make sure we're controlling the boards. Like, those three, we look to those three to lead the team, and understand that, even though, I mean, if you're up at 10 in the first quarter, up in 10 at halftime, it doesn't matter at any point in the game. You got to keep going.
Obviously, shooting percentage has been something that you guys have really been focusing on this year. And we talked about Rochelle shooting about 52% right
Hmm.
now
Yeah.
from the field and having a solid time. But this game against Casper, you guys shot 36.5, which I think has probably been one of the lowest spots
Yeah.
throughout this season. Obviously, you guys have been around that 45%, 50% throughout the year. How do you keep that going? How do you keep those open shots? What do you need to do? Pick and rolls, screens.
Hmm.
What are some of the things that you can do to make sure those shots fall?
And we talk about setting our teammates up, because you got to get paint touches and set your teammates up to score. Attack the defense, especially the second line of the defense. We want to attack and put pressure on them, and then make reads on who to
Mhm.
set up. But I really harp on my girls that our shooting percentage and things like that need to not dictate your effort, your energy, your defensive play. Like, shooting percentage is going to change every night.
Yeah,
Some nights you're going to hit shots, and it's going to be, smooth sailing game, but very seldom does that happen. And so you got to be able to bring out the intensity on defense, and though you can't allow your shots falling or not falling to dictate your effort and your energy.
absolutely. And obviously things change
Mhm.
after a loss and you try to sometimes it's hard to pick up after a loss.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's just like, okay, hey, we got to throw this game away, but it's easier said than done.
Yes. Mhm.
What do you do as a coach? I know we talk about team energy, team momentum, making sure that the tempo stays up, but we haven't really been much in this situation much, especially 4 games on the road
Mhm.
after a homestand. Last loss was, to Casper, and you had 2 games home.
Mhm.
And then this time it's a loss to Casper, but this time it's 4 game road
Sure.
strain.
Mhm.
How do you make sure that everything goes your way?
I think the girls are pretty resilient in that way, because that's things, you come back to practice on Monday after an emotional loss on Saturday, and honestly, I was very impressed with their spirits,
Mhm.
and everything, because I've been a part of teams and seen teams and coaches and stuff that are, they hold on to it for 3, 4, 5 days, and I was very impressed with our girls, because I walked in and talked about, hey, we got to move on, but I really didn't need to, because they kind of had, and
Yeah.
I was impressed with them. And again, that comes a lot back to the player leadership, understanding that, hey, what's happened in the past, it may be painful, but you learn from it and you move on. And so I'm really impressed with the group. I am. I'm impressed with the team and their ability to be resilient through hard times.
Who would you say right now is that bench player that's been coming off, that's been that difference maker? Obviously, we see the top three, but who's that person coming off? Maybe the sixth man, seventh man. Who is that?
I'd have to say that's Maria right now. Maria is, I mean, I wish everybody could talk as loud as she does on the floor. Like, she brings a lot of energy. She communicates really well. She talks, and and she went through a little bit of a slump there, which happens to all of us.
hmm
She went to a little bit of a slump, but the way that she came back after Christmas break, I'm just very impressed with. She's that spark coming off the bench, and she's a threat offensively from the 3-point line, mid range, and getting to the rim. But she's an excellent teammate, picking her teammates up and just bringing that energy. And so I think Maria's one, but also Danae brings a lot of defensive energy too. Danae gets out there and she plays really hard defensively, and it's one thing that's fun to see, is that the girls all support each other and get along really well, and the chemistry is really good.
If you were to give out an award for the most like enthusiastic, charismatic person right now on the team? And I know I'm putting you
That's
in a hard
tough.
spot. Who would
Me.
right now, maybe a bench player, maybe the starter, who would you say right now has that award?
Ooh, that's a tough one. The enthusiasm and yeah, I probably would have to say Maria. I'd probably have to say Maria. And you know, what's funny is because the other day in practice, Andrea had a phenomenal practice. She was just getting after it rebounding wise, and
Mhm.
she was just the energy you could see in her and the spark in her. Like it was just great to see. And so it's tough to kind of pick one person for that because we
Yeah.
just have so many that bring that energy and that excitement. And Dasani's one all the time brings that competitiveness and energy in practice. And so, but like I said, I'm just very happy with Maria's. Handling her slump like she did
Mhm.
because a lot of there's players that go into a slump and stay in it for so long, and I'm just very happy with the way that she bounced back out of it and started focusing on the little things that make big things happen instead of focusing on, because she was missing shots, and when you focus on missing shots, it can feel like the end of the world sometimes, but if
Yeah.
you focus on just doing the little things and bringing the energy, then it's amazing how all of a sudden you start making shots.
Hey, there you go. And Coach, thank you again for taking time and talking with us for another Coach's Corner.
Well, thank you, appreciate it.
Awesome. This is Chase the Horseman of Horsley signing off here with Coach Liz Lewis. We'll see you guys next time here on another Coach's Corner.